Hello again. Welcome to May 5th. It's been about 2 months since I've been out from quarantine, it seems like. I want to tell you a little story that happened last night before we get into the Beatle Room stories today. Because about midnight last night, I usually walk the dogs just before we go to bed. And I was walking Frankie and Allie back, and a bunny or a coyote or something spooked Frankie, and he pulled so hard he pulled me down. I went from a vertical man to a horizontal man in one move. Let me tell you, I've got bruises on my leg. I've got an ukulele shaped bruise on my hip, a couple of broken ribs, I think, and I left some DNA out there in the driveway, and I was cursing so loud at one point. I was afraid. We've got the chief of police that lives like 2 doors down this way, and the county sheriff lives about 4 doors down this way. I was afraid I was going to wake them up screaming so loud about that. Then I started laughing. I was laughing so hard. I was afraid all the neighbors would wake up and call the men in the white suits to come and get me. But so if I'm a little more medicated than usual today, that might be why, if you know what I mean. But we're going to focus on Ringo today, and some interfacing with Ringo to get a couple of autographs, not this one in particular in the story. But remember back in 1964, the first thing we had to do was memorize the names. Like I told the story about the little girl. We had John, Paul, George, and Ringo. That was always the order of it. And Ringo was always, John was the smart one, the scary one. Paul was the cute one, George was the quiet one, and Ringo was the funny one. Whether it was his funny smiles or maybe being the butt of some jokes in some cases, it was always fun when Ringo was around. And Ringo, this magazine's from 1964 about photos that Ringo was taking already back then. So Ringo and his photos was from the very beginning a part of the interest from Beatles fans. But one thing that was a surprise from Ringo, one thing we certainly didn't expect after the Beatles broke up, were all these wonderful all-star tours that Ringo has been doing since 1989. Almost every year since then, Ringo's been out on the road. You know how he gathers the groups of musicians from different bands and puts those all together. Well, now this story really takes place first in 1997 when Todd Rundgren was in the band, Gary Brooker was in the band, and the kickoff was in New York City. I got to go to the press conference for the first of that tour, and I had just seen Todd Rundgren in concert not too long before that, so I took some photos that I'd taken of Todd in concert to possibly give to Todd, and during they were doing a little press photo op there. I gave Todd the pictures. Ringo saw me give Todd those pictures and asked, what's in the envelope there, Todd? And he started showing them. So I said, Ringo, I've got one for you too. Would you mind signing one autograph for me? And he says, oh, look at the colors in that photo. Where was that taken? I told him it was taken out in Los Angeles at the Universal Amphitheater a couple of tours ago. And he was kind of complimentary on that and signed his autograph right across my photo there. I always like to get the things that a photo that I've taken signed by them. But one bonus that was at this press conference was the fact that Peter Max was there. And Peter Max, the world-famous artist, was there to unveil his artwork that he had done to prepare for that tour. And you can see a couple of pictures here of Peter with his artwork and Ringo. That was the images that they were using associated with this tour. And now I had been lucky to met Peter Max a couple of times before, actually. He was in Atlanta when the Olympics were kicked off there in 96. He did a logo for the Olympics with the American flag that he signed the TV guide for me there. He had previously signed an album cover for me that Joey, he did the artwork for this Badfinger album. Joey has signed it. Tony Cave with the Yes keyboard player has signed it. Of course, Peter Max has signed it. He also signed a poster book in a very colorful page there for me. A couple of other times I'd met him at a television station or radio stations there. he also signed first time I ever met him, I had him sign this. This is a clock that Peter Max had designed, and my Aunt Lucille got me this in 1972 for my high school graduation, and I told Peter at the time, that's been on my wall and running ever since 1972, and it's been, he seemed glad to know that they were putting out quality product if it had his images and graphics on there. So that was the meeting with Ringo and Todd and Peter Max. That was in 97. Now we got to flash forward about 5 years, and Peter Max is coming to Atlanta again for another, this is just for an art showing that he has of his art there. And I've always known people in radio and television, and a disc jockey that was working at the radio station there, Katie, called me and told me that Peter Max was going to be at the station if I wanted to come down. So I went down to the station and took some photos for Peter Max this time that I had taken at the Ringo press conference. And I gave him those photos and asked him to sign one nice 8x10 for me. I've got a book here of all photos that I've taken, and put this one in that booklet that Peter Max had signed to me with the whole band that group of all-stars from that particular tour. So he signed that one and said that was awfully nice to bring him a gift like that, and he asked me if I would like to go to the formal reception. The kickoff for his art showing was going to be that night at a really fancy hotel, and it was something like $1,800 for a ticket to go to the art showing there. And I said to him, I said, honestly, I would love to be able to go, but the truth is I am leaving right now to drive to Tennessee because it's my dad's 75th birthday, and I just can't miss that at all. And he says, well, it sounds like you've got your priorities in order, and we started going our separate ways there. And then I heard his voice say, Rick, do you still, I had this in an envelope, and he said, do you still have that envelope? And it sounds like we got the dog that almost killed me last night barking downstairs. But he said, can I see that envelope for a minute? I gave him the envelope back, and he got out his pen again and started drawing this. He said, what's your dad's name? And I told him it was Harold. And he said, what's your mom's name? And I said, Trula. And he says, what a beautiful name, Trula. And they put that, he asked if she was still alive, and I said, no, she's already passed away. He put the little angel wings around her heart, and then he asked my sister's name, put Sherry's name in there too, and finished the drawing of the face there just on the envelope that I'd had that in. And now I got home a little later and gave that to Dad. And my dad was born in Piney Flats, Tennessee. And that sounds like a hee-haw salute, doesn't it? Piney Flats, Tennessee, so a population 217, and I may be exaggerating up a little bit for Piney Flats, Tennessee. Piney Flats was basically a crossing in the road with a drugstore and a funeral home. My dad's understanding of art was pretty much art carny, va-va-va-voom, if you know what I mean. He didn't really understand or appreciate what that was. And then I showed him this little article that had been in the paper that weekend about what a significant artist Peter Max was, and the values and interest of what the particular one-of-a-kind artwork that Peter Max had created for my dad there, just to show you what a nice guy that Peter Max was, and what a wonderful keepsake. This actually doesn't qualify to be in the 1964 room. This lives down in our bedroom with my dad's military flag and some other souvenirs of my dad's life downstairs. And really, really glad to share that story with my dad, with you folks. Friday, I'm going to talk about one of my favorite things, sports ball. See you Friday. Peace and love. Stay safe. Science!